This is a simple guide to filing your accounts on the Companies House website. Now this is something that you might usually use an accountant to do, and obviously if you have complicated financial figures that you need to file, then it is better to use a professional accountant or somebody who does have experience and qualifications in doing accounts. But if you have very simple accounts, then you might not want to bother paying somebody because it is quite easy to do it yourself. So the first thing to do is to go on the government's website, which is obviously www.gov.uk, and then you look for Government Organisations Companies House, or you can just do a Google search on Companies House and it brings this up, and you click on Find Company Information. So obviously you now need to click Start Now and find the information for your company. So I'm going to do it just by putting the company number in, and the company that we're going to do today is one of the companies that I run. I'm the director of several different companies, but we're going to just use this one as an example. And then you have to file accounts. So first of all, you would have to enter your normal password in order to file accounts, but this is where it gets a little bit more tricky because there is a second password you have to use. It's not the same as the original password. So you have one password to actually enter the Companies House website, but then when you click on File Accounts, it asks you for a different password. So I'm going to, first of all, it says, do you want to file your corporation tax with HMRC now, which obviously for tax purposes. Well, I'm going to put no for the time being, because this is just a demonstration. So put save and continue. It's a very small company that I'm just going to show you. So it's micro entity accounts, save and continue again, and it says in order to do micro entity accounts, my turnover has to be less than £632,000 a year, balance sheet total no more than 316, and average employees no more than 10 employees. So if that applies to you, just click continue, and then it asks you for what you actually need to have before you start. So you've got to know your email address, which I hope you do, and the password that you use to sign into the web filing service. And it's important just to stress this is not the same password that you use to enter Companies House. It's a different password. Okay, and the authentication code that Companies House sent you, if you haven't got one, you need to contact Companies House and they'll send you one, but it can take a few days for it to come through in the post. It says here up to 5 days. I've found it's usually less than that, but allow for up to 5 days. So if you leave your accounts too late, you could find yourself in a position where you don't get the code in time. So try to do your accounts at least a couple of weeks before the deadline, because if you find you haven't got your authentication code or you can't remember it, then it could take 5 days for it to be sent in the post. Well, I know my authentication code, so I'm going to continue, file micro entity accounts, and then I add my email address again, and this is where I have to put a different password in. So I stress this is not the same password that you use to enter the Companies House site. This is a different password that you use to sign in to the web filing service to file your annual accounts. So I'm going to put that in now and sign in. And then it asks my company number. Well, I've got that ready, so I'll just paste that in. That's my company number, and then the authentication code, which obviously for security purposes you can't see what this is, because I don't want you knowing how to file into my company. There we go, sign in, and it comes up with all my accounts and all the various information that you need. Okay, well, it's saying my accounts are up to date up to the 31st of December 2020, which is in a week's time. Well, at least it is when I was making this film. And then the confirmation statement, which I've already done right up to next September. So 2 things you have to file at Companies House. One is the confirmation statement, and the other are your annual accounts. Well, I have already done the annual accounts, so that's sorted out anyway. But they expire on the 31st of December. Confirmation statement, I've got a long time yet, so don't have to worry about that. but I do have to worry about my accounts because I've only got another week to file them. So I click on the red box, File Company Accounts, and then choose the accounts that I want to file. Well, it's micro entity accounts if you're a small company. Obviously you might be doing abridged accounts or full accounts or dormant accounts. If you need to do full accounts or the abridged accounts, then the chances are you've probably got an accountant who's doing it for you, because then we're getting into much bigger territory. So chances are, if you're listening to this, if you're watching this video, then it's either going to be dormant accounts or it's going to be micro entity accounts. So I'm filing my micro entity accounts. And obviously it says this has to be after the 30th of September 2013. Balance sheet, as I've mentioned before, less than 316,000, net turnover less than 632,000, and less than 10 average employees. So then I just click on File Micro Entity Accounts, and here then it gives the information you have to fill in for each of these different categories: fixed accounts, current accounts, prepayments and accrued, creditors, all the other stuff all the way down. You should have this information even if you have an accountant who does this for you. It is pretty straightforward. You should know this information anyway. You go right down to the bottom and then you have to confirm the various statements. So when it's for members have not required the company to obtain an audit, well, obviously not. Directors acknowledge their responsibilities, of course. Accounts are being prepared in accordance with micro entity provisions and delivered in accordance, blah 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 blah. So you can read all that later. You put the date that the accounts have been filed, your name or whoever it is, the approving director, and then if you need another approving director, that gets added. That probably won't be the case. Again, if you have an accountant, they'll be doing this for you anyway. Okay, and that's it. And then you just click on validate and continue. And that is all you need to do to file your micro entity balance sheet. Now, I'm not going to fill it in now so that you don't get lots of my private information, but if you do need to do it, the main thing to remember is you must have your email address, which you should know. You must know an authentication code, and you can use the same one every year. Once you've got one, you can use it every year. You don't have to get a new code every year. You have to have your company number, which you should know. And you have to have two, not one, but two passwords. Password to get on the original Companies House website, and then another password which gets you onto the web filing service, which obviously is different. And then once you're on there, you've got those four choices. You can file dormant accounts, micro entity accounts, full accounts, or abridged accounts. But as I said earlier, if you're filing full accounts or abridged accounts, then the chances are you've got an accountant that's going to be doing that for you anyway. This what I'm telling you now is aimed at people who are maybe running a dormant company or a company that just has micro entity accounts. So that's a company that have quite a relatively small turnover and less than 10 employees. And that's all you need to do, and then just validate and continue, and you've filed your accounts. It takes in total, well, probably 10-15 minutes at most, and that could save you a lot of money on paying an accountant to do your accounts for you. I do stress that if you have got a more complicated company, if you have other reasons to use an accountant, then don't try to do it yourself. This is really aimed at very, very small companies or dormant companies who just have very, very simple accounts. It always makes sense to use the services of an accountant if you have a bigger company, especially because they'll be able to tell you how much tax you need to pay, because obviously you also need to file your accounts to Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, and that gets a bit more complicated. So this is purely for the purposes of Companies House. So yeah, if you do need to pay corporation tax and you need to worry a bit more about more complicated figures, always use a professional. I am not a professional accountant. I'm a businessman, I'm an entrepreneur, but I'm not an accountant. So any of the advice I've given you here is purely for advisory purposes, not for professional purposes. Always use an accountant if you're not sure.